It's March 2022, everybody. And Ryan Page, first of all, it's great to see you here. Hi, everybody. Here's the host of the TweetCap and
Hey,
my great friend of the show, Ryan Page. What's
how's
up,
it going?
Ryan?
Not much. We're gonna get into Twitter, so that's nice.
Good to see you. Yes,
Always
at
fun
a
to do it.
new edition of the TweetCap and then some. But, I clearly just changed the intro in my head. But, um, you know, March 2020 was 2 years ago now, a full 24 months.
Yeah.
And who would have thought we'd get to hear March 2022?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess everyone technically knew we'd get to here, but what it was gonna look like, I don't think anybody had that.
No, no, no. And, as vax mandates are being loosened and mask mandates, we're just not going to harp on that because we've gone enough 2 years with that. But everybody can see the news.
Yes.
We're getting closer to the end. Not fully. There's still cases out there, but at least we're getting a lot closer.
It
And
does seem
for
like that.
and for March 2022, we'll take that.
Yeah,
But it
it's all we can take.
but in return, there's two sovereign nations at war. There's sports being straight up canceled. There's celebrities getting crazier and crazier. And what a turn of events 2 years can bring, right?
Exactly. Shows you anything can happen.
But hey, as we are on the brink of March 2022, why don't we do a tweet cap as we get this full circle or then some? Hopefully it's not an oval, but hopefully we just bounce around over to the place. But I think this would be a good time to do a tweet cap for where we're at now, because who would have thought when the pandemic was taking place, NBA cancels their season, Tom Hanks, the whole ordeal, everybody has their where were you when moment. Fast forward 2 years, here are some of the big things taking place. But before we get into that, Ryan, everything else good?
Yeah.
Doing life, doing what you can.
Absolutely. Busy as always, but it's a good busy, so can't complain.
Yes. And according to my sources, in exactly 7 months, you will be a married man, correct?
That's true. I actually have
Exactly
in
7 months.
October. This weekend though, we're going to the venue to finalize those details, and we're going to do our cake tasting this weekend.
Oh, I gotta actually put it in my calendar. I'm sorry I didn't put it in my iPhone calendar.
Oh, you don't have to go to those. That's not for. That's just me, Melissa. But
I meant your actual wedding date.
Oh yeah, I know you know what it is.
Ryan wedding.
Not worried about you.
I clicked it in from 2 to 3 p.m. October 1st.
Perfect. Starts at 4. Starts at 4. So
wow, a wedding cake tasting.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, and it's local? You're getting married in Rochester, right?
Yeah, it's up in Rochester. Cheesy Eddie's. I think we're pretty much convinced we're gonna go there.
Cheesy Eddie's.
Yeah, it's
free
pretty
advertising.
Good. Yeah, there you go. Cheesy Eddie's. If you're in Rochester, delicious. Everyone says it's delicious. We just haven't decided what flavors and stuff we want to do. So that's really what it is. We're definitely going to do it from there. We just don't know what we're going to get.
Okay. Is there anything you're leaning towards? Is as simple as I want a vanilla cake?
No, I don't know. So
chocolate.
We don't know. So we're going to do the cupcakes for everybody because, you know what I mean? It's easier. And then you could try, people have more flavors. But we need to get those, but we also need to get a cake to cut for like the first piece or whatever. So we have to, it's kind of like, it's a lot. We have to figure out what we like for the cake, but what we like for the cake isn't necessarily what everyone else is going to eat. So we have to try a couple of different flavors to see what we think guests would like. And then again, we have to figure out what our cake is going to be because we have to do the first cake cutting, the first piece. And I think we're not going to eat any cupcakes. We're just going to eat that first piece of cake and then move on. Save the cupcakes for everybody else. We have some gluten-free people.
Gluten-free cupcakes.
So we have to figure out how that'll work.
Any vegans?
Not that I know of. No one has come out as vegan. So if anyone is vegan, it's a recent thing, and I don't know about it yet. But
well, I'm very, very excited for it.
Yeah.
As you pick essentially your most important.
What's your favorite?
Ever.
What do you want?
I mean, for up to me, I like a cannoli cake. To actually,
cannoli cake.
I like.
I don't know if they do it.
Yeah,
See, we're not going to a traditional like Italian bakery, so I don't know if Cheesy Eddie's has it, but I'll check
cheesy Eddie's.
if they've got cannoli cake
It
or
is a
cannoli
cheese.
cupcake. That's right, it is a
So
cheese, so could be their forte. I think they do a lot of cheesecake actually. In
yeah,
fairness,
that
so
actually is my favorite cake. If it were up to me and I decide for all the people at your wedding, I choose the cannoli cake.
everyone, Matt wants a cannoli cake, so buckle up. That's what's happening.
Excellent stuff. Well, it's funny. Now my notes app isn't working, so I have to type it on the phone. And it's funny. The first note here is Ryan wedding cake. So first thing news for the March 2022.
Yeah, I didn't tweet about it, so it's not TweetCap approved, but that's fine.
Anyways, good stuff there. But yes, and I don't know. You know what's funny? I don't know if you happen to heard my last monologue. I talked about your wedding coming up, and I was saying how I hope, even if it's just a brief, I don't know, it has to necessarily be on the wedding, but if we could just fit some type of recording somewhere, doesn't have to be the exact wedding day, maybe the day before,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
whatever after.
here's
I
what
thought
we'll
that'd be a
do
funny dream.
after we go out on the town on Friday, because
Mhm.
we have a really late. I love how everyone's just hearing my wedding planning right now. We have a
Yeah,
really
we'll move on to other things. Just one other
no,
thing.
but I will say we have a really late rehearsal dinner or rehearsal
Mhm.
rather. Rehearsals at 7 p.m.
Is that late? Like
Yeah,
to the
because so we
standards?
have we have a late wedding too, because usually people get married a little bit closer to like the afternoon.
Mhm.
We're not even getting to the church like for like the beginning of the ceremonies at 4 p.m.
Oh.
So the rehearsal is late, the wedding is late, but on the rehearsal day anyway, we have to do like the dinner and stuff, but that's going to be super late. So it's going to be really late night if we go out Friday, which I think we're probably going to do. So we'll all just mosey on to wherever and we'll record something incoherent after the rehearsal before the wedding the next day. We'll see. Melissa will be asleep, so I got, I'll be wherever you guys are because Melissa's got the room.
Well, this is going to be exciting as we keep expanding the show. As I've called the audience here, the productive nation, they'll feel like they're at your wedding too, Ryan. There's a landmark in this show.
Yeah, I meant to talk to you about that. The productive people, didn't that ever cross your mind? The alliteration is right there.
Well, I did think of that. The productive it was either productive people or productive nation.
I mean,
guess we
you
could
went
do
with
both.
productive. You got yeah. Who cares? Just listen to the podcast. That's what's most
Yeah,
important.
exactly.
But
So
no, productive nation. I like it. I did see that. I was like, oh, I would have gone for the alliteration.
yeah,
But I was like, maybe it's taken. That's another thing. I had searched. Maybe it had been taken, and that's where nation was. Or maybe just nation is a bit more apt description. I know you have what, like 5,000 downloads now? You're about the size of you're getting there, small nation status.
exactly. So I think that is I think that is a great way of putting everything. We're just a nation of people keep growing and growing. So we'll take that, and we will be excited for early October for your big day, and all of us in the productive nation can experience the day.
That's good. I'll put up a some sort of Venmo for no, I'm just for well
Any
wishers.
donations works out for the Ryan and Melissa Human Fund.
Exactly.
Well, Ryan, where do we go from this crazy world? We have to transition and switch gears and it's going to be awkward either way. So we'll start with the less awkward first, but yet the most the most aggravating, at least to me and some others. It was announced today, even though this is released on the 3rd of March, but here on Tuesday, 2 days before, it was announced that Major League Baseball will be canceling the first 2 series of the 2022 MLB season amongst the players' lockout. And this will be the first time since 1995 they missed scheduled games. And this is all as a result of the lockout. So long story short, for anyone's following the story or not, the MLB owners and the Players Association have a huge beef. They cannot make a deal on what's known as the collective bargaining agreement, which in, legal mumbo jumbo terms, the contract for the next 7 years. This includes playoff teams. This includes salary minimums and maximums. This includes minor league systems and all of TV deals, all of that. And the players and owners cannot come up with an agreement for whatever reason. Well, I mean, actually, there's plenty of reasons. This has taken place since November. The big beef amongst both sides includes players' salary minimums, which, they're offering as much as $600,000 to $60,000, even for a minor league player. Oh, sorry, that's not good enough, but I guess for some of the players. But that's being disputed. There's something called service time where, certain teams get bonuses amongst the time of the year they're promoted, just another way for owners to pocket that money. There's just, it really is a large headache to break it down, but it's the classic argument, billionaires versus billionaires. And despite the many weeks of negotiations and self-imposed deadlines, neither side is agreeing. They were meeting in person in Florida. The Players Association actually left, and leaving Rob Manfred, the commissioner, no choice but to cancel games. So, lot to unpack. As of now, no baseball for 2 weeks. For the first 2 weeks, people honestly expect that to continue. Now, Ryan, you're a baseball fan. It's fair to say, right?
Not like you, but yeah, I watch the Mets every once in a while.
Yeah, okay. Well, then you could probably look at this objectively then, as I look at it subjectively as a big baseball fan. But, as I talk about this, baseball is canceling itself. What comes to mind saying that to you?
I mean, so number one, you actually brought up an interesting point where it's like millionaires versus billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I actually personally kind of agree with that, but I do think that in fairness, the unions obviously matter more in other scenarios. Not every union has millionaire workers, so it's important to recognize that at the end of the day, it's still obviously a union collectively negotiating for their members, and that's what they're supposed to do.
Yes, the players in this case.
Yeah, the players. And while we, as people who are not making anywhere near that much money, would like to see them just take the money and play, I'm sure that they have calculated in some way that the terms are not fair. But that's number one. I do think it's important to, because it can be really hard to, look at it objectively and say, well, these people have enough money. And they do, by the way. That's true. They do have enough money. I don't think anyone would be, upset if they just said, yeah, we have enough money. We can play for these terms. But that's not how unions typically work. So obviously we can't expect them to start doing that just because their clients are super wealthy.
Yeah.
Or members are wealthy. And
also to mention, at this moment, because games are getting canceled, no one is getting a game day check.
Yeah, exactly.
Not at all. So despite them, gnawing at each other, players are not getting paid at all. And to your point, as you said, if you calculate, say a player makes $700,000 a season, they take, minus 162. It's about, I think it's about like 4,000 a game for one game. And it keeps decreasing and decreasing. And those players are figuring out a way to negotiate how that's not fair to them. And of course it's not. Nobody wants to see anybody lose money, especially for those who are providing for families and stuff. But it's hard to connect on those terms as well
because it's so much money.
Yeah.
But I would say the only thing that I'm just thinking about the way this all goes down, and usually if so an owner or whatever of a company, not baseball, has their employees strike, the unions existed as a way to try and again get better wages, and so that way these workers aren't just replaced. In baseball, that can't happen. You can't just replace an entire league of baseball players. There's not that many of them. However, on the flip side, for workers in most industries, there's usually competition. You can do something else to make money. In baseball, there is no other. Not really any other place to go. Like, I don't know exactly where any of these players. I mean, I guess if they have branding deals and things like that hold, they can still make money that way. But by and large, if they don't play a season, then they don't get any money.
Yeah, none of their player salary, at least.
Right, like I said, they could have negotiated some sort of guarantee, or again, there could be branding and other sponsorships that they make money off of. But if you don't play, you don't get paid typically, and if you don't have any games, the owners can't make any money. So
exactly, it's all economics,
and it's really odd to me. And I saw this tweet, or got it connected to tweets, of course, from Danny Valencia. I don't really know who that is. It says he's a 2020 Olympian. So it sounds like he has something to do with basketball, by the way. But anyway, he tweeted out 21 hours ago. Mike Trout, the best player in the show, has 1.9 million followers on Instagram, playing in Los Angeles. So think Los Angeles.
Pretty big market, lots of people, Hollywood celebs.
Tyler Hero, a good player for the Miami Heat, nowhere near Mike Trout's level, has 2.3 million followers. Why is that? And so I think this goes to the heart of why this is a problem for everybody, in that there's not enough goodwill for anybody involved in this for people to look good doing this. If the NBA players went on strike tomorrow, for whatever reason, the people would back the players 1,000%. It wouldn't even be a question. It'll never happen. It's why the NBA players could probably walk into their, especially the really big ones, could just walk into their front office and say, here's what we're changing. And it will happen.
Look at all the trades that taken place.
Yeah. And that's because
James Harden example.
Well, exactly. And whenever he wants to leave, he just gets to. And I mean, talking about Kyrie Irving too, he's still a prominent member of a team, and he hasn't played because he hasn't been allowed to play. And they're all talking about, now that it's lessening, he'll finally get to play again. This is a big thing. And I'm like, could you imagine any other place where you just said, yeah, I'm not going to prepare for work, and you'll just have to wait until the environment suits me, and then I'll come back to work. No one else.
That's their world. That's their world, and we're just living in it.
But do you really think
these players?
Right. But do you think that
and owners,
maybe Mike Trout, but do you think that an everyday run of the mill pro baseball player could do that? No. They'll be gone, and they'll call someone up, and that's that. You know what I mean? It's just I mean, yes, maybe a few select players and a few select teams have something similar to that, but I would say that even some of the top players in certain franchises wouldn't have that ability that a lot more basketball players have. And so, and it's because no one's watching, but a lot less people are watching. It's just not as popular, and so they don't have the goodwill. So to be burning all of what goodwill they do have on this, I hope that whatever their problem is, wherever the disagreement is, it's worth it. I hope it's a principled stance. I hope this is not just greed, because I don't think this is going to work out very well for anybody. I mean, I'm sure they will play some baseball at some point this year. It'll eventually get to the point.
They have to.
Right? It'll get to the point where, because not enough of them have these other deals that they could just live. So enough players are going to say, all right, we held out as long as we could. I don't have a Nike deal. I need to play baseball.
That's what's going to change for the Players Association to just agree, even if they personally don't want to. It's for the sake of those players.
And don't get me wrong, there will come a time when the owners are like, well, this big old stadium has just been hemorrhaging money this whole time. I'm going to have to start firing people, which again, also not a good look. So it's not like it's just the players that are going to get, stretched by this. The players are going to get stretched by it more though. And ultimately they will play some baseball. But if this drags on for too long, I mean, first of all, if I were the owners, I might just give the players what they want. Because, again, if this drags on for too long, ultimately, if people have to pick sides, it's always the worker that's going to get supported by the majority of people. Not everybody, but the majority of people are going to support the worker. So I think that you're already a pretty unpopular sport relative to other sports. This is only going to hurt you. You should really consider doing the thing, signing whatever they need you to sign, and then just having a season, because you're not going to make any money with an empty stadium. And honestly, like you said, COVID is, going away, but it's not gone yet. And so it's not like there's a plethora of people looking to rent out entire stadiums. You know what I mean? There's not like tons of live music and other events that, you could be like, well, whatever, we'll subsidize some of our losses. Like there's still a premium on live events right now, or rather not a premium on live events. There's limited live events right now, and capacity is sometimes limited depending on the performer or the state. So it's just not a good time for either group of people to be doing this. And I think ultimately the players hurt the longer this goes on.
For sure.
And I think that the owners, though, are not doing the sport any favors by doing this. And so ultimately both sides are going to end up hurting. And baseball, which is, again, already kind of, I want to say it's a dying pastime because it's supposed to be America's sport, but it really is a dying pastime at this point. And
you're killing yourself by this point. You're making your death worse by choosing this.
Well, it's even worse. It's not even like it's a death. It's more like just a fade, because they're still playing. They still exist, but they're just not relevant. The one thing if something happened and it folded, but it's not going to fold. It's just going to fade away quietly, which is almost worse.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
This is a long way out, by the way. I'm not predicting like the end of baseball in our lifetime or anything. I'm just saying over time, it's going to get smaller and smaller and just kind of get irrelevant.
Yes. Here's basically the bottom line. I'll try to explain as best as I can. You said baseball's a dying sport, but yet they made over $10 billion in revenue the last 2 years. So how does a sport where you see for 3/4 of the year empty stadiums being played, especially in small market teams, people care more about NFL training camp than baseball sometimes in the summer. But when you have this lower popularity, people barely know your top 10 players, but yet all these owners are still making money. Oh, so where is this coming from? And this is one of the other big issues why the owners didn't meet the demands, especially some people are saying the small market owners are really pushing this. This includes your Kansas City Royals, Cincinnati Reds in Ohio,
basically anything that you don't
Pittsburgh
think of as
Pirates.
Coastal.
Exactly. Instead of the big market teams, the Yankees in New York, Dodgers in Los Angeles, San Francisco Giants, the Phillies, these big market teams in these huge affluent areas who could get so much revenue from the TV deals alone. That's where this money is, coming from, the big market teams. And the thing is, with the one thing baseball has that specifically the other 3 major league sports, which includes hockey, basketball, and the NFL, is there's no salary cap. Hence, there's no set amount of money that any team can spend over. You can make your payroll as high as possible.
If you have the funds, you can do it.
Yep. This is where your $400 payrolls for the Dodgers, the Yankees, all that. And you wonder why these teams are so stacked. And baseball cares about the regional. It cares more about those regions than the smaller market teams. And this is also as a result of high ticket prices that they choose to do, the high $15 beers, all of that. So you're a small market owner. Say you own the Pittsburgh Pirates. If New York and LA could just be a natural big economies that will just fund their teams, for years and years and years, no one cares about my team. No players want to come. I can draft. But by the time they need to get paid, I have to trade them away because I don't have the payroll.
You don't have the money, yeah.
That's where it seems that some of these small market teams are actually opposing in these votes. Basically, they don't care if their players are marketed. There's always money going to these owners. That's where the players beef. That's the best as I can explain it. And honestly, the best way to fix this is to implement a salary cap.
Which,
but they're not going to do it.
Would probably hurt some players, but
yeah, but at least you have a better chance of a deal. It hurts both sides, but it'll get what they want. You'll be able to even out. You could create price floors, and like one of the most eerie quotes is that the players said this isn't about salaries, this is about competitive balance. But they wouldn't say that because they keep getting these insane contracts who are saying these quotes.
Right.
So it's not. It's
they're the people who are making all the money because there's no salary cap.
Yes.
These players.
So bottom line, as we talked about this, the millionaires and billionaires, it's all about how we're getting more money in our fat pockets, and still no one's taking the time to negotiate.
I wonder if they can share ads from television. I don't know how that works. I don't know who gets the ad money from television.
So those are just a mixture of regional markets that, you know, the Yankees can afford their own. Something like a Fox Sports Pittsburgh. They can't have the Pittsburgh Pirates network. There's not enough revenue. Right. So that's who the ad for that. The ad revenue. The best that I understand it.
Maybe they should regulate that too. Because think about it. Whatever. I'm just saying, when you turn on a baseball game, even if it's the Yankees, even a diehard Yankees fan needs to see another team play the Yankees. The Yankees can't do it by themselves. Yeah, you can't. You can't play a game with one team. So you'd think that since people are tuning in to see the game between two teams, the two teams could more equitably split ad revenue from that game on TV. But I don't know. That's just a thought.
No, it's a legitimate thought. Anyway, to even it out, and they've had deals going back and forth, whether it's minimum salary caps, then the players rejected or the owners rejected, and they were negotiated to like 3 a.m. And then, their tone changed. People changed their mind. And bottom line, they can't even stay in the same room. Again, I think Manfred looks like Rob Manfred, the commissioner, will be feeling that even from non-baseball fans for this, it's going to be tough for him until
Twitter will have opinions.
Yeah. So he's going to get destroyed by the media, destroyed by his fans and players. So this is just turning into an ugly shit show. And your last point about baseball killing any momentum it has left to be in the mainstream, this is how you will make it fade away, worse than just collapsing. It'll just turn into, a sport that's barely covered, a sport that is a thing of itself. I mean, you'll always have generations and diehard fans like myself who will go to these games, but it's not looking bleak, man. It's like no offense. I know you were a big NASCAR fan, but remember it was pretty big. It was.
I don't know if I would ever consider myself a big NASCAR fan. But
okay, well, you knew enough.
I knew enough about NASCAR, yeah.
And they would be like,
oh, they're regional.
First, yes, regional. But I'm saying in like the 2000s when they were a little more relevant than now, like it would be basically the best way they'd be on the first block of Sports Center, the Indy 500. But now you do not see it at all whatsoever. And who knows if baseball will have a day like that? I don't know.
They just did the LA Coliseum. They had a special event there. NASCAR did.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Right? So everyone I know who actually likes NASCAR, and I won't elaborate. Hated that, of course. I thought it was kind of cool. Just because of the location alone. I don't know if I'd watch it every year, but I saw like the first 2 laps. I happened to be over with someone who was watching it.
The laps.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I thought that was kind of interesting, that location. So there are ways to try and gain some relevance. There are ways to look at what you're doing poorly. But I'll be honest with you, all of them involve the MLB playing games. So they have to at least get that part down if they want to address any issues.
Yeah. See, then maybe baseball will need to figure out how to play a game on a remote Plan M or Well, they used to play. The Dodgers used to play there. Well, I don't know. They play at Tom Brady's house.
Elon Musk let him play on Mars or something.
Well, yeah. As we switch gears, baseball. There's no baseball until further notice. I hope they make a deal within the next couple of weeks. You'd hope, but we'll carefully monitor this situation, and hopefully at some point when we're on again, we could talk about how baseball saved itself from complete PR disaster. Because as of now, they are clearly in a nightmare.
Saved himself or played himself, one or the other.
And it's so sad, Ryan, when your Mets get some pretty big deal players like the Max Scherzer and such, the baseball has to go on a strike. Well, a lockout, a work stoppage. But typical Mets, I guess that's all I could say. Can't have good things. No. So now the next thing to talk about is, again, sensitive topic, but I feel it is important to mention right now is since last week, Russia has declared war on Ukraine. And, I'm probably not best to explain it in a more professional term. Ryan, you're more versed into this.
I mean, this is foreign policy. I don't think either of us is really qualified to talk about this.
You're right.
I could try.
We could look at this like just two. I am 27, soon to be 27.
Yeah, just
Ukraine, Russia, beefing, Putin, no good.
A little more. There's a little more context than beefing, I think. But
yes, there is a war, and I guess we don't have to go break down the foreign policy. We don't have to break the foreign relations. We don't have to go CNN or Fox News right now. But I just want to think of this as just, hanging out, having a beer, talking about this.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. I can't believe we're living amongst two sovereign nations, fighting and attacking each other like that. I think that's and I know there have been other countries. I know there have been other countries that have been at war. Anything that happened in Bosnia or the Middle East. But this is this is Russia. This is a world power that we've grown up with, and they are attacking the little guy, the little country. And guess what comes to mind as of today in early March? What do you think about that, Ryan, when you're not looking on Twitter and seeing baseball issues and you have something legitimate going on?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, you made a good point, and obviously somebody who knows more could tell me that I'm wrong. But when the wars in our lifetime, really in our lifetime, have not been between countries. They've been within countries. So you talk about genocide and regime change in these countries. So that's happened a couple times while we've been alive. Most recently, in Afghanistan, but also usually us, the United States, against some third party, but not a country. So we didn't declare war against Afghanistan. We declared war against the Taliban, right?
Yeah.
So, which is not a country. They're just a group. The last time I think we went to war with another country was with Iraq, because that was two countries. Obviously, Iraq is a country and we're a country. But to see war in Europe, I mean, obviously, World War II vibes, World War I as well, but everyone thinks of II. The sequel gets most of the credit there. Although I will say I saw that the musician Franz Ferdinand is canceling his tours in Eastern Europe. And so that went viral for a little bit. Thank God we got Franz Ferdinand out of Europe, because obviously, for those of you who know, last time there was a Franz Ferdinand in Eastern Europe, with all the political strife, he was assassinated and started World War II, or one. Which one? I forget which one. World War I. Yeah.
And they didn't sing "Take Me Out." I say, "Don't you know?"
And that when I saw that, it reminded me that for a brief period of absurd time, people just took real people and made it their musician name. Which is silly. I don't like it. Rip Romney, I know that's not his actual name. It's Mitt Romney, but Rip Romney is just the silliest name I've ever heard.
Franz Ferdinand. There's one more big one in there.
There's a few. But at TweetCap, if you want to tell me all of the musicians that stole historical figures' names. So yeah, that was kind of funny, but to obviously be a little more serious, there's not that there's ever a good reason for violence, but there's definitely no reason for violence in Ukraine right now, other than Russia just decided to. And the response, I'll say the response has been, unified. I think it's been overwhelming. Obviously, I know for some of us, myself included at times, it can feel like, okay, what are sanctions? What do they do? But I mean, we see how the people in this country get when gas price goes up, $1. So imagine what happens when your entire economy is frozen. So hopefully that's enough. Hopefully Russia doesn't continue to try and escalate. If you were talking about the beefing, so the pretext for doing all of this was peacekeeping. They deemed Ukraine as a threat to Russian sovereignty, and so this was their attack on Ukraine. Maybe not sovereignty, but they deemed Ukraine as a threat, a security risk, and so that's why they've gone in. I think there's even been rumors that they were seeking out Nazis. In Ukraine.
The Nazis are brought back up, huh?
Yeah, they used the Nazis. That's a rumor, but in general, they're calling it a peacekeeping military operation to root out this non-existent sort of tyrannical regime that's attacking ethnic Russians. That was how this all ramped up. I know we saw this started when Putin declared 2 parts of Ukraine as independent countries. Those are 2 areas that have had a lot of fighting between Russian nationals and the Ukrainian government because they are very Russian centric. They're of course along the border, and so that's the pretext they've been using for invading. Obviously, the president of Ukraine has become his own meme.
I was gonna say that one thing we have to mention, who's already Time Person of the Year. I'll let you get into it, but the name Vladimir Zelensky.
Yeah, Volodymyr Zelensky. Yeah.
Oh, Vladimir Zelensky. Yes, yeah. I talk about why this person is the internet's favorite person right now. Well, say this president.
I would say,
is the internet's favorite.
First, we gotta call him, President Zelensky, because he is the president. I think his backstory is interesting.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so he was a comedian, an actor and a comedian. And now I know for American audiences, that's a red flag. A famous celebrity gets elected president, and I'm pretty sure in Ukraine it was a red flag too. When it happened, but unlike our celebrity presidents, but seriously, this is different. He rose to prominence in a television show called Servant of the People, in which he plays a history teacher who goes on a viral rant about democracy and things like that, and ends up running for president and winning. So he played the president on TV. And then after that show, he went ahead and ran for president for real and got elected president.
That's mind-blowing. It really is.
So when you think about all of this, though, he obviously, not dissimilarly to our last president, actually, for all of the things I've said about the last president, this president in Ukraine, more than I think Vladimir Putin realized, actually understands media in a way that no, seriously, because I mean, I was talking to someone else, and we're hearing a lot of stories, and frankly, they're not true. About Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of them was the ghost of Ukraine. I don't know if you've heard this story. It's been debunked. There's this story of just a lone fighter pilot who's been shooting down Russian aircraft, and it's not true. None of it's true. But it went viral, and it went viral fast. And there's a bunch of other stories.
You could just make up something like there's just a real life Rambo, huh?
Yeah,
in Ukraine.
But the reason is because you see Zelensky. He's since the invasion has started. He's been in military fatigues. He's in the green all the time. Not maybe military fatigues, but he's in the green kind of camo all the time. He's still in the city, and he understands media. And I don't mean like Ukrainian media, obviously he does that. He was a celebrity, but he understands, social media and mass media better than Putin, better than our president, probably. And
we don't see Biden going in.
Right. And he's making it, but he's making this case where I think a lot of what's happening now is because I think there's a version of this where you have the same old president in Ukraine. Maybe they flee Ukraine, maybe they don't. And it just looks completely overwhelming. Ukraine's going to get taken over. Russia's going to do it. And, we'll slap Russia on the wrist. We'll condemn it. We'll do some sanctions, but we're not trying to provoke Russia because Russia obviously is a formidable superpower. And we'll just, we'll sanction them. And then, the plight of the Ukrainian people is their own. And I think that that's very, very possibly what could have happened. But Zelensky didn't let that happen. He's been very vocal. He's been all over social. He's been all over traditional media. I mean, he's been on this since it started, since before it started. He was calling, he made a plea for Ukrainian nationals to come home before the invasion, as the troops were getting on the border, saying, we need to be unified as a country. Come home, stand in solidarity with us. He didn't know when. Realistically, he didn't know when it was going to happen. And also, there's no reason to do that. Most people didn't come home just because the president asked them to. But he did it because he was painting this picture of Ukraine, which, right or not, I don't know much about Ukraine other than recently. To be completely honest with you, I know more about him than I do the actual country of Ukraine. But he's painted the picture of Ukraine as this proud, people who are willing to fight. And he's made it very clear that he's willing to fight and that Ukraine is willing to fight. And I think he's punching above his weight because of it. I think the sanctions that we're imposing are harder because we realize that this is not going to be a row. This is not going to be, Moscow setting up their summer homes in Kiev. Yeah. This is going to be a real fight. Like, and maybe it shouldn't, and maybe it won't actually end up being that way, but he's convinced the Western nations, he's convinced NATO that this is a real fight. This is going to have real consequences, and we have to pick a side. We have to do what we think is right. And obviously, for anyone who's paying attention, there's only one right now. You can't side with Russia, but he's made it very clear.
Who would be dumb enough except Steven Seagal?
Well, there's other people too, but unfortunately, they're in this country. We're not going to, but he's been very, very good at creating a mythos around himself, and to a greater extent, Ukraine. And he's been very clear to try and differentiate between himself and Ukraine too.
Yeah, this on paper, this really looked like a David versus Goliath story. I mean, I think people thought this was.
I think people thought this was actually this was gonna look like Afghanistan. Russia would come in, it'd be a couple days. Russia would come in and they would take over whatever they wanted, and there's nothing Ukraine could do about it. And Zelensky, they've done everything they can. There's been casualties, of course, but they've done everything they can to fight back. But in the meantime, during the fighting, he's done a very good job of taking every win and making it the biggest win ever. He's done a very good job of minimizing losses in terms of public morale. He's kept morale extremely high. He's kept momentum extremely high, and he's done it through his sheer personality. And I think that's only something.
And Twitter, like it also, I say this in the most serious way.
I mean, not just Twitter.
With social media, though.
Yeah. In traditional media, obviously, he's on a lot of like the different talk shows and things, calling in, and he spoke to the UN, and that gets its coverage and things like that. So it's not just social media, but it's social media as well. And he's inspiring his people to do it. So people on the ground, real stories are doing it. And again, I think that this, in terms of media savvy, we're seeing something that we actually did see very recently in this country. Media savvy.
Like
applied differently in different, but also in different circumstances. It's not like, the last president had invasion to worry about, so we don't know what would have happened if that had been the case. But the media savvy has been, I think, a game changer that Vladimir Putin, who's not media savvy, he's, he's like an ex-spy, he's KGB, he's secretive. That's his whole deal. He's a creepy secret guy. So he's not.
Does he even have Twitter?
Oh yeah, he does. But it's like state sponsored and stuff. Like he doesn't have the kind of personality that Zelensky has. And President Zelensky, because of that personality and because of his understanding of the stories he understands stories and he understands what makes the story compelling. And because of that, he's been telling these amazing stories on the ground. He's been able to expertly portray the main character that you would want to see in this. If this was a story, if this wasn't real, and it's unfortunately, it's very real, unfortunately. A lot of people are getting hurt. A lot of lives are being ruined. But if this was a story, this is the character you want to root for. Zelensky.
This
and
is
he
the
knows that.
narrative.
He's playing that character because frankly, it's all he can do. I mean, other than strap up himself, and it seems like he may have even done that, but other than strap up himself and show up to the front line, there's nothing else he can do. Russia's there. There's no negotiating. There's no diplomacy right now. Russia's going to keep going, at least for a little bit. So all he can do is play the part of the hero to keep Ukraine going and to keep the West going so they don't lose heart and say, well, this is a foregone conclusion. We're not going to hurt ourselves. We're not going to hurt our relationships with other countries. We're going to stick by these sanctions. We might even, make these sanctions harder. We've seen today most countries, we sent it already, but most countries who hadn't already sent anti-armor or anti-aircraft missiles are sending them now. They're sending actual weapons to the Ukraine right now. Volunteers are going to the Ukraine right now to fight from all over the country and all over the world. I think there was a story about someone in Canada who quit his job and he flew to Ukraine. He's fighting right now because he was inspired by the toughness and by the
of Zelensky
of Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. And again, President Zelensky said that a bunch of times, like, it's not just me. I'm one person. This is not me versus Putin. This is Ukraine versus Russia. And he's been very clear that while he might be one of the main characters in the story, the setting is important. And again, not something that everybody would understand, something that to keep up with the comparisons of media savvy, our last president in his inaugural address had a line that resonated with a lot of people. I alone can fix it. He wasn't talking about a party. He wasn't talking about a country. He was talking about himself. His story centered around him. It was a great man story. He goes, I'm the great man. I alone can fix it. And it sold well, is what people wanted at the time. So I'm not critiquing the narrative because, again, narratively, he knows what he's doing. It's the other stuff that I get a little nervous about. But
yeah, right.
In this case, Zelensky, I think, rightfully realized the story can't be me versus Putin. The story has to be Ukraine standing against Putin. And he's been very clear to make Putin the enemy too, not all of Russia, which is something that we're seeing a lot of here. How much blame do we give the Russian people? Because again, our sanctions are not just hurting Putin. They're hurting everyone in Russia, which is all we can do in fairness. But he's been very clear that his issue is a tyrannical leadership in Russia. And he and his country are fighting against that, the leadership of Russia. And so he's been very clear to cast the characters in a way, again, that's compelling for the moment. Again, not every story can have the same characters, the same setting. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't, he should have done something else, just that he recognized what people were going to gravitate toward. And he knew that if people were watching, they had a chance. And I think that's what it came down to. Ukraine and Zelensky knew that if he could get enough people looking, if he could make it so that the lights stayed on and that we didn't just turn off, close our eyes and let it happen, which I think, again, could have happened, then they have a fighting chance. Because if people saw what was going on and they saw the impact, there was nothing that they could do. They couldn't turn away. And so he wanted to make sure that nobody turned away. Because if the West turned their back, closed their eyes, then Ukraine was done. And it might still be done. I mean, they are smaller than Russia, but I think he was an expert, and from his show business days, and understanding that you need an audience to get, you need an audience, and he made sure to grab an audience when he needed it most. And so I think this is his moment right now. If he makes it out of this alive, and I no one is talking about that very much except for him. He mentioned it a few times. There's really no guarantee he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a wanted man.
But if he makes it out of this alive, I think he's going to have a lot more to say. And I think people are going to listen. And it'll be interesting to see. Again, don't know much about his domestic policy. He might have been a bad president. I don't actually know. I just know, again,
this is a
I
good way
followed
to change your perception.
Yeah, I followed his election because it was interesting because of the whole comedian thing. So that's why I know what I know about Zelensky. And then I didn't pay attention again until I guess a little bit with the impeachment stuff. And then obviously a lot more now that he's, an active commander in chief. But yeah, he may have been bad at his job. I don't actually know. Someone who's from Ukraine or studies Ukraine might be able to shed some light at TweetCap. But yeah, he's definitely, I think he's earned at least international acclaim. And if he makes it out of this, I hope he continues to lead the way he's leading now and to craft that message of unity and strength and not divisiveness, because even once the cannons, we don't use cannons, even once the tanks stop rolling into Kiev, there's still a lot of divisions. There's a lot of, there's an undercurrent of kind of authoritarianism across the planet right now. It's very in vogue. And he seems like, maybe one of the best equipped people to stand up on the world stage and say, this is what the cost is. And this is why we can't let it surface in any country, Russia or otherwise.
Yeah. And may I ask you, does President Zelensky speak English?
I don't know. He had a translator at the UN.
Okay.
So I'm going to say if he does, I'm going to say
could have helped his cause more in all seriousness, Yeah.
I'll say if he does, it probably isn't well. Otherwise, he wouldn't use a translator. Because again, talk about telling your story, speaking to the Western nations in English, which is a Western tongue, directly, obviously would have a profound impact. However, the speech he gave to the UN, the interpreter, she started crying mid-speech. So obviously it was still very powerful, even in translation. But I would say based on, again, he's never done anything here. He's not a Hollywood actor. He was in Ukraine. And he had an interpreter at the UN speak English for him. Okay. So I'm going to assume that if he does speak English, it's not a lot.
Well, we hope that he has some powerful words at the end of this. And yeah, like another thing, this is just a story to monitor the situation. I don't know how it's going to end, but I do hope that there's an incredible ending to this narrative. I mean, President, how do you go from
Zelensky? Yeah,
like I said, that it'd be like if Steve Carell became president somehow. At least that's the vibes I get. And
the show is actually pretty good. I did watch it when it was on Netflix. It might still be on Netflix. I watched the first
his show.
I watched the first two episodes when he was running for president because I thought it was interesting.
So the guy who
played the president was running for president. Oh yeah, I knew who he was when he ran. I thought it was a fun story.
Okay, so this I saw that this was in 2019.
Yeah.
And so you were, quote, new before everyone else. You were on that first.
Yeah, no, that's why I said. But I feel like because you know a lot about Zelensky, and it's not that, and it's also not that I've been spending all my time reading about this guy since the war. I was scrolling through. I like to look at different elections.
This would have been a great
around the country. Yeah. Honestly, I might have even pitched it at one point. But at that point, he'd already been president for a little bit, and so, but yeah, it was just like Manny Pacquiao's running for president in the Philippines right now.
Hopefully, there's no big war that he has to worry about.
But so I like quirky election stories. They don't all have to be celebrities, but I saw this one.
Exotic.
Yeah, but I saw this one. I saw that a guy who played president actually ran for president. And you know me, I love The West Wing. I love Martin Sheen. Josiah Bartlett for president. So I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Obviously, it's a different show. Oh, I love Martin Sheen. He's 82 years old. We don't need that right now. We don't. I love Martin Sheen. I do. But just not right
I
now.
have something about
Too late.
People who are close to their 80s doing crazy things after this. So but wow, President Zelensky, Ryan knew before everybody else, before he became an international hero of inspiration. You have bragging rights, Ryan. You know this.
Servant of the People is the show on Netflix.
You can bring it up at the bar.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
Or
on Netflix anymore, actually, but that was the show on Netflix.
you could bring it up at the next cocktail party you're at. I knew Zelensky. I actually watched the show, and it was a good show.
Well, yeah. I mean, I saw 2 episodes. It was fine. It was obviously I didn't speak the language, so I had to use subtitles, and so I kind of lost my attention.
Yeah.
If it's still on there, maybe I'll finish it if it's still on there. But
and how about when Netflix tries to make this epic 10-part miniseries for this? Especially if he makes it out of live. I mean, you have to do it in the Ukraine.
Hey, this will be a fascinating doc to go from the first day of filming as president to ending a war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Hopefully, talk about a learning curve.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt your last point before, but were you about to say something?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's all.
Well, President Zelensky, hopefully when it's all over, they have him on an SNL cameo, and everyone goes, "Ah!"
Oh my god! Could you imagine?
I mean, you can't get a bit. I mean, I really hope it works well for him, because I mean, you went to war as a president. What an honor.
Well, I mean, honor.
For the
duty, whatever it is. Yeah.
Duty. Especially if you don't have to, do other really bad drastic measures. But anyways, President Zelensky, I hope there's a day soon where we celebrate your accomplishments and lessons learned after that.
Yeah.
So Ryan, let's switch it up real quick to some more positive things instead of lockouts and war. You could talk about wrestling. And how wrestling keeps heating up. Brian,
much more qualified to talk about this.
One of my ultimate questions I ask: will there ever be a day where wrestling is quote unquote cool again?
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Would it be on all over Twitter, so every social media outlet on Twitter, whether it's Barstool
it trends every time it's on?
I'm saying, what if it goes to Barstool, the front of ESPN, the Today Show?
It's not like a full-on sport, so it can't be ESPN.
Or basically, when we see more Instagram stories than usual,
I don't know.
Are we getting closer to that day with some of these big announcements that are coming up, such as Stone Cold Steve Austin returning after 19 years, or Pat MaCafee versus Vince McMahon, which should be official, the day this episode podcast drops, or I don't know. A question I ask always is wrestling getting cooler and cooler. AEW, there's a lot of AEW fans. I had no idea, man. They had an event actually in Bridgeport. They had a show that I know quite a few people went.
I mean, I would say that in general, SmackDown had like 2.1 million viewers or something crazy, or something like that. I don't remember the number. Something to do with the viewership of SmackDown was pretty high.
Can Roman? Here's a good question: can Roman Reigns be more identifiable to the average person?
I would reckon that for a lot of kids, he probably is.
Yeah,
my mom. So, all right, example. My mom knows who Roman Reigns is, not because she watches. Obviously, she doesn't, but because the kids watch.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Do you think kids are talking about Roman Reigns?
Yeah, I do.
See, that's what I'm saying is wrestling, quote unquote, on its way to be cool again.
I think the main issue has been, and probably continue to be, when they get older than kids, do they still want to talk about Roman Reigns?
Okay.
And I don't know if the answer to that is yes, because WWE is still obviously very family friendly, but I would say that AEW is not particularly family friendly. It's fine. It's not explicit, but a lot of blood and all that stuff. And so I think there's more options now. I think there is more possibility that if you end up really liking wrestling, but you just can't get behind, some of the silliness that you see in WWE with, R-Truth. And I love R-Truth.
Hello over there.
What's up? Exactly. If you feel me, say what's up. But if you can't get behind some of the silliness, there's a less silly product now on TV. So yeah, I think it's possible, but it's not going to be like it was in the 80s or 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, frankly, people know it's not real. Like, say what you will, people didn't know. Like, maybe some people knew, they didn't know.
I think I
And if
gave
they did
it to
know, they
like
didn't.
12. I mean, I've heard it. I heard it when I was 5, 6, 7, and then 12. I was able to convince myself that it wasn't real. That I remember distinctly during a Hell in a Cell match where it was the infamous McMahon's versus DX Hell in a Cell
With Big Show.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
could see, um, you know, pretty much Triple H tries to knee Vince, and he misses him by a solid like 5 inches, and he's like, oh, and that's when That's when I learned, oh shit, this is fake.
Right, and so like, in fairness, they've announced that it's not real several times,
Which I
since
think
then.
has helped them in their advantage over the years.
Yeah, and it's like people laugh when I say it's like theater, because it's not like theater at all, but it's the same concept. It's not real. You're not supposed to go there thinking it's real. You're supposed to go there to watch the show. You're not supposed to go there. It's not like when you watch the Yankees play. When you watch the Yankees play, you want to see who's going to win, and you want to see who's going to win in WWE. But that's not really what you should be looking for. You should be trying to just enjoy yourself. It's like medieval times. you get placed in the green section, right?
The green section,
but
the blue
tonight
team.
but tonight is not Green's night. It's Blue's night. You just happen to come on Blue's night. There's nothing you can do about it. You're in green section.
Nope.
You're supposed to cheer your head off for Green. He's going to joust his little heart out. But Blue is going to win because the story calls for Blue to win and get the princess, and then the bad guy fights. It's a whole thing. It's the same story every time. They just switch the night who's going to win. That's WWE.
Every single year.
Story every time.
And we
They just switch the night who's going to win. And that's okay. You're supposed to go. I mean, and sometimes your night wins and you're really happy about your night winning. And sometimes your night doesn't win. And maybe you're a little disappointed.
On the stage.
Right. But even if you're a little disappointed that your night didn't win, you're still supposed to be excited that you're there. You had a good time. You bought your ticket. You had your meal. Maybe you bought a little plastic sword, right? That's what people want from medieval times. And that's essentially what people should want from WWE. In all wrestling, but especially them.
I was about to say, and AEW, which also is, I don't know the ratings per se, but I know a lot of people talk about it. I see the merch more around and people trending it. I mean, I feel this is a good time for wrestling. The 2020s. How about that? That's one industry that has been booming. Probably the very only one.
Might be bigger than baseball in a few years if it keeps like this.
Not
a sport, but it might have more fans.
At this point, you're probably right, man. You need Aaron Judge to be a wrestler. He's 6'8".
He's big. Doesn't always translate well, but
true. But anyways, yeah. So the other things and like the main things to focus on that can help wrestling be cool again. The one thing I mentioned, Stone Cold Steve Austin, probably the face of the last true boom period for wrestling. Obviously, the face of the Attitude Era. Mm-hmm. He, has kept himself pretty relevant. You see him in like the Expendables and a lot of action movies. You see, he shows up to do his stunner.
You got a Broken Skull sessions. And he has his beer. And,
yeah. Memes.
He has that TV show where he just does like extreme sports with other celebrities or whatever. Like
the show.
I forget the name of it. Like Stone Cold Experiences. Like
I know what you're talking about.
He took like Rob Riggle on like a four-wheeler through like Montana or something, like something ridiculous. But that's what they did, and it went on TV. So
still counts.
So there you go. Still counts. Exactly.
But yes, it's pretty much been confirmed everywhere else that Stone Cold is coming back for one match in his home state of Texas, where WrestleMania will be the first weekend of April 2nd and 3rd. So do you think people would be interested in seeing Stone Cold come back, whether it's now the people who were kids in the kids in the late 90s, early 2000s, now that they are dads and stuff,
I think,
or people who enjoyed the Stone Cold legacy and Peacock. I think more people than not have Peacock. They can check it out.
The issue is going to be two issues. Number one, they haven't technically announced it yet. And
True.
if they want to make any extra money off of it, they need to announce it early because kids don't know who he is. And if they know, and if they know, like they know because he's an old time wrestler, they don't care, right? He's not their favorite wrestler. They're not going to want to go to WrestleMania to see him. Dad might.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those,
go
some
upstairs,
of the older
son.
No, some of the older people might, and they have the money to do it, but you need to announce it because if you're not a big fan of wrestling, but you're interested in seeing Stone Cold, and they don't announce, you're not going to pay all that money on a rumor and then have Stone Cold not wrestle. So they need to confirm he's wrestling if they want to make any extra money off of that. That's number one. But number two, similar to what I just said, none of the kids care about Stone Cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do wonder what this actually does for long term. Listen, for like you and I, who we just missed him, realistically, we just missed him.
Yeah.
So we know who he is. He was still very relevant when we started watching as little kids, but we never really got to see the Stone Cold that the people who are in their 30s saw, right?
Stone Cold.
Right. And so for us, we get to hear that glass crack for real this time. And that's cool because we never did. We've seen the clips. We knew who he was because he was just hanging around when we were watching as kids, but we came in the Randy Orton, Batista, John Cena, Brock Lesnar era, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, that Kurt Angle, that whole group was the top guys. Edge. And so the Rock, Stone Cold, Mankind, Triple H era, they hung around. HBK, they hung around a little bit, but in Undertaker, but they weren't the main people when we were watching. So we knew them. They would make special appearances, maybe a match or two, nothing crazy. So for us, this is the first time that we get to see them like for real. And it's for us. So that's cool but we were going to watch anyway, you and I. So I'm saying for other people, there needs to be, I think, more of a hook. And they could do it if they just announce who it is, the opponent, the whole 9 yards ahead of time and let him, build it himself because he's obviously very good professional wrestler. But for the young kids, I mean, this is not their cup of tea. And so I think we should look at it as what are we going to do for Kevin Owens? That's probably who he's going to fight with this match. What is he going to get out of this? Because that's someone that young kids care about.
Yes, and Kevin Owens, the rumored opponent for Stone Cold Steve Austin.
New person. So if you don't know who Stone Cold is, you definitely don't know who Kevin Owens is. No offense to any of those people, but it's just true. So how do you get people who know who Stone Cold is to care about Kevin Owens? And I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think they will. I think it's going to be exactly the opposite. I think he's going to come out. He's going to beat up Kevin Owens. He's going to win. And you know what? Not every match has to build a new star. That's a controversial take. People will disagree with me. Mm-hmm. But frankly, Kevin Owens is former champ. So maybe they don't need to build him. Maybe they have nothing planned and they just need someone to get in the ring and do a match with the old guy. So his old fans can cheer. And that's fine. But if you do that too often, you run into an issue. And as you pointed out, we have a ton of matches with part-time non-wrestlers or old-time wrestlers. And so if they go over in every single match and no one gained anything, that's a problem. Yeah, that can't happen. And it could happen. It's set up to potentially happen.
Yeah,
but that's what they have to try and avoid. You talked about Vince and Pat, which we'll know more on Thursday about that probably.
Yes. Later today, we'll find out the big rumor that Pat MaCafee, obviously huge fame and incredible podcaster for the Pat MaCafee show, who's also the full-time color commentator for SmackDown with Michael Cole. He is going to go up against his boss for that, allegedly, 76-year-old Vince McMahon, who my dad texted me an article. Look who's coming back. Texted me, no chance.
And
Vince versus Pat.
I'll be honest.
What do we think?
No chance. No chance. Exactly. That's going to hit. and it's probably gonna get as many cheers as Stone Cold's Glass Shatter.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yo, wait, did you hate him?
That one
Did you
piano
hate him
chord,
as a kid?
no, I didn't legit hate him.
I
He's
did.
a character. But
I could
that
took it too
one,
serious.
that one chord right in the beginning is gonna play.
Boom.
Yeah, and then no chance. When that hits, when he says it, if he can still do the swagger too, and I'm sure he can.
That's
He
the
could
ultimate meme.
If he could saunter on down to the ring with that swagger, the place is gonna go ballistic. But it's really all he should do.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this for Austin Theory, who, by the way, it should be a tag match. Austin Theory should be in it. Someone should be wrestling with Pat MaCafee. Maybe Cody, maybe someone else, maybe who knows. I don't even know who else could do it. I suggested Finn Balor, but I guess he's busy now. That's the new US champion, so I guess it's not going to be him. But someone. They got to get someone to wrestle with Pat MaCafee. Adam Cole can't do it because Adam Cole is in a different company now. But Pete Dunne teamed with Pat MaCafee in NXT. They can maybe call him up for a match. That would be kind of cool. Good way to introduce him, then bring him to SmackDown full time. Let you build up that roster. But either way, there should be a tag team match. And I get it. Don't bill it as a tag team match at first. And people are going to say that's tricky, but it is. So announce it as Vince versus, Pat. Have Vince come out, cut a promo. Austin Theory comes out, does the rest of it.
I'm 76.
Maybe don't say that. But then don't give Austin Theory his own entrance either. Just do the Vince McMahon entrance. Do it second. So Pat MaCafee and everybody and whoever else he's with have to be in the ring to watch Vince enter. The crowd will love it. And then you just do a normal match. Vince McMahon can come in when Pat MaCafee is in. Just throw haymakers at Pat MaCafee, right? Then tag out. Pat MaCafee can do all of his, because he does some crazy athletics. He can do all of that to Austin Theory and not to Vince McMahon and get the pin on Austin Theory. And it'll be fine. Everyone gets to cheer for Pat MaCafee at WrestleMania. Everyone gets to hear that song one more time. It is really unfortunate. And part of me thinks that this could be true. And this is my conspiracy theory hat before we leave. I know we're running out of time, but before we leave, I know they just fired Shane. How it could come out that it's going to be Pat and Shane versus Vince and Austin Theory. Vince and his new
that writes
son.
itself.
Exactly. Now I feel very bad for Austin Theory in that case. He will have to wrestle like he's never wrestled in his entire life because he's going to have to carry 3 people. One of them is his boss and tag team partner. But it's clear that they're positioning Austin Theory to be part of McMahon's kind of inner circle, to pardon the pun from AEW there. And so I think he deserves, and frankly, after the way that he saved the Saudi match, Saudi chamber match, he deserves a big Mania moment. Again, I don't think you could do a complete bait and switch. I don't think you can have Pat MaCafee versus Austin Theory if you've announced Pat MaCafee versus Vince McMahon, but I think you can absolutely get away with a tag team match. I mean, think about Ronda Rousey, Kurt Angle, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H. Remember that tag team match from a while back? That was fun. Wasn't like everyone's favorite, but it was fun. And none of those, most of those people can't wrestle.
I would say Triple H even do it for Mania?
Oh, he had that heart attack, so he's done.
Oh,
yeah. I'm sure he works backstage, but he can't wrestle. At least, certainly not this year. Probably never again, though, unfortunately. But you know what? HBK, he's working again. Maybe he came back for that really bad Saudi match, so he might want to.
Always thought it'd be funny because Pat's co-host is AJ Hawk, who played the NFL himself as a linebacker.
You're gonna
why
kill
did he
Austin.
just come in there?
You're gonna kill Austin.
Pat and AJ, the podcasters verse.
You're gonna kill Austin Theory if you do that. Austin Theory is going to have 2 wrestlers, 2 football players, and Vince McMahon. He's got to bring those to a WrestleMania match. Not his first ever WrestleMania. He was in the COVID Mania too, in a tag team with Angel Garza.
Oh,
People pretend that he hasn't been on the main roster before. He did. They just sent him back, and then they brought him back up and just pretended like he had been there before. But
wrestling.
He does have a WrestleMania match. I believe he was part of that U.S. Championship match or tag team title match. He was part of the team with Andrade and Angel Garza and all of them. Yeah. So to have him on his, even if it's his second Mania match, carry Vince McMahon, Pat MaCafee, and AJ Hawk would not be fair. It'd be setting him up for disappointment. It'd be one thing if AJ Hawk was Bad Bunny, because you know that he has some moves. Same with Pat MaCafee. But to have someone that we've never seen go before, that would be unfair. I think if they can get Cody, they should get Cody. I don't know if they can get Cody, and I don't know if they already have a plan for Cody. I don't know what his plan would be. Edge is out now. Edge has got somebody.
Maybe they'll just save it for the night after.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying if you can get Cody for Mania, have him come on the Pat MaCafee show, maybe even, and have McAfee ask him on air like the next week. It'd be great.
He's been featuring more wrestlers, and you know what's funny about all this
he loves planning Michael it out. Desperately loves Michael Cole, which is hysterical because all of the fans obviously love Pat MaCafee. Mm-hmm. He's done a great job. A lot of them are still have these horrible takes about Michael Cole being bad, and he's really not bad. I mean, he's not. I don't know. Everyone talks about how good JR is, and in fairness, we were younger than a lot of them. So, I mean, when I think of commentary, I do think of JR and King, but I watched SmackDown because it was on Fridays and I was a kid, so I could stay up later. So I think about Taz and Michael Cole when I think about commentators. Those are the voices of wrestling to me, Taz and Michael Cole. Like on AEW, JR is whatever. Frankly, I don't think it adds anything. I wish Taz took his job full time.
JR
I love Taz.
Improve.
Right, he should retire. I think he's actually hurting himself, but that's beside the point. I shouldn't say that because he's still good. He's, you know what I mean? He's still JR. He still has all of his classic mannerisms. So I'm being too hard on him. But I'm just saying, Taz and Michael Cole, they were wrestling commentators for me. That was the voice of wrestling.
Yeah.
And so
that's your association in your head.
Yeah. But even beyond that, I think he's proven himself more than once that he's not as bad as they think, as people pretend he is. And Pat MaCafee, again, desperately loves him. So all of Pat's fans hate Michael Cole, love Pat MaCafee, who loves Michael Cole. And it's a weird triangle of people. But I mean, I took my brother to wrestling, and he only cared about seeing Pat MaCafee.
See, Tommy's the biggest Pat MaCafee, and I do listen to a show every day. This is even, you know how I know baseball matters? When Pat talks about baseball.
Yeah.
Three times a year.
He's pretty much on the cutting edge with sports. He's a tastemaker in that industry, to be sure.
He also doesn't want to admit he's a Pirates fan.
He's from Pittsburgh, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So,
isn't that his whole shtick when he tweets out and he's like a bat and SmackDown? I thought that was a Pittsburgh accent that he was going for on Twitter, but
no, that's just him.
I think it is. I bet you. I mean, maybe that's not how he looks at it, but like I know he calls it SmackDown on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be a Pittsburgh accent.
That's hilarious. You know, just to wrap these things up, just two quick things. One, also, just to mention with that we haven't already, with the Logan Paul and the Miz teaming up to go get some Mysterios. Who's ready to see Logan Paul do some bumps? Logan Paul, I saw WWE did a playlist. They got a solid 15 minutes of content. Logan Paul puts in some work for the WWE.
Oh, yeah, no, he's been on a couple times.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. Other people do. But again,
who cares? They'd rather just see Jake.
It's just interesting, though. Like, so a lot of the people that I see, right, they're older people. They cover it as their profession. And I get that means they have a specific mindset. But I'll see.
Logan Paul hate bias.
But I'll see. So, like,
it's every day, bro.
I'll see people be like, Cyndi Lauper deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. She does, by the way.
Yeah.
For everything she did. No, she's not gonna get it now, but for everything she did for the rock and wrestling connection back in the 80s. Like, without Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T, there is no Hulkamania. There's no WrestleMania.
Yeah.
They were key parts. And I'm not saying that Logan Paul is going to be the Cyndi Lauper for WrestleMania. But what I am saying is Cyndi Lauper can't be the Cyndi Lauper for the new generation of wrestling. She can't be. She's not famous anymore. Not like that. Not like that. She's very famous, but not like, not like relevant famous. She's like iconic famous. It's different. So you need these new people. You need Pat MaCafee. You need Logan Paul. I could argue you don't need Johnny Knoxville. I think his
I thought he's going to have a match at Mania.
He is.
Yeah.
He's got to match on Friday, probably. But
that's what we're going to make it official Friday. Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah. For a championship, no less. But
he's going to win.
He might actually, very well might. But again, I think we could argue we don't need Johnny Knoxville right now. But I'm actually not against it. I was a little bummed in the Royal Rumble, and this is horrible to say.
Yeah, he was only in an app like 90 seconds.
Well, no, that wasn't the problem. That was the perfect amount of time. But he didn't like jump off anything. Yeah. He didn't do any crazy stunts. Nobody kicked him in the groin. Nothing. They're the Jackass crew. They're supposed to do crazy. They do crazy things for money. Then they got into a wrestling ring and did nothing. So
I wanted to give him a bump.
So I'm saying Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. Johnny Knoxville better jump off of something, or Wee Man can do it. I don't really care who does it, but someone's jumping off of something tall.
Didn't they once have the entire crew had a match played against Umaga? It was going to be an 8-on-1 handicap.
So they had, they did
the other version.
So they had Steve-O do a segment with Umaga, and Umaga hit him with the Samoan spike, which was his finisher. And Steve-O hit the ground, right? He did what he was supposed to do, but he was laughing the whole time, laughing hysterically. He did not sell it at all. Umaga was mad because it made him look weak, because Steve-O just giggled after getting attacked. And so they
knock out John Cena, but you could make Steve-O laugh.
Right, exactly. It tickles Steve-O, but it wins you the Intercontinental Championship against Bobby Lashley. So this will be better. Johnny Knoxville's of the group. Johnny Knoxville's probably the most professional, I would say. Seems the most professional anyway. Seems like he's got the most, the most willing to do the business. I hope he loses. I don't think he will. I assume Logan Paul's gonna win.
Logan Paul's got to pin Rey Mysterio. Clean.
Dominic Mysterio. He's going to pin Dominic Mysterio. That'll be the feud. Going out of it, it'll set up Rey versus Dominic, I assume. I have to assume that's where this leads. When Dominic gets beat up by a YouTuber, his dad is disappointed, and that starts a match. But I don't know. Maybe not.
We need to have it. How are they going to involve his brother Jake somehow, some way?
What I don't know is if they do a tag team match for Pat MaCafee, or even if they do a regular match, Vince versus Pat, and Austin Theory just gets involved, I could see Vince winning his match and Pat losing.
Pat gets callers on his show, so they'll just get destroyed.
So if they're thinking about a longer term story, Austin Theory versus Pat MaCafee, this is just starting it. I could see Vince McMahon Austin getting Theory the win. Versus
Pat MaCafee.
but that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I just love the idea of putting these celebrities together, like you said.
If Mr. T fought, Bob Backlund, nothing would have come of that. He had to fight the hot new stars, the people on the way up, not the people who had been doing the catch wrestling for 20 years. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not calling Austin Theory Hulk Hogan. I'm not, but he's closer than, Hulk Hogan is to what Hulk Hogan was at the time. You know what I mean? You can't have these old people. And it's the reason why, if they do it, I wish they'd done AJ Styles in Pat MaCafee. You could have even done a hint about how he was bringing AJ for backup, and everyone thought it was AJ Hawk, but it was AJ Styles. It would have been fun. But they're not doing that, because again, it would have helped somebody who kind of needs a little bit of a boost, because they've been, strapped in a tag team for a while. But I don't know. Whatever they do, maybe it doesn't set up Austin. Maybe it sets up Cody versus Pat. Maybe that's the big angle they got Cody Rhodes to come back for. Pat MaCafee. I don't know. But whatever it is, you want Pat MaCafee to wrestle non Vince McMahon people as often as possible, because it makes a difference. It makes them seem like a bigger deal to other people.
Right.
And that's, if you're not doing that, then why are you working with him? You know what I mean? Like, other than, I mean, he is very good at his job, in fairness, but if you're not doing that, then why work with somebody if you're not going to use their skills? And same with Logan Paul. If you're not going to have, Ray and Dominic do something afterward, then why you have Logan Paul? Because you don't want Logan Paul to lose. And then it's Logan Paul versus The Miz. Who are we supposed to boo? Boo everybody in that match.
Everybody jumps into a pool. And the last thing we have to mention with this WrestleMania, like I said, we'll have a preview show right before it to give our predictions.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, AJ the Man and Debo join us for that. Our Gen Z correspondents. We have the big main event confirmed as a championship unification. We have, well, yes, for now, or at least
a temporary unification. Yeah.
For the advertisers, but we have Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the third time. Night 2, winner takes all to unify the WWE and Universal Championship.
Feels like the 7th time.
Yeah, seriously. So this is it. I think it is a good arc right here for Roman Reigns.
This is the third Mania match, right?
Yeah, this is their third Mania match.
They've had other matches.
Yeah, third main event of WrestleMania.
Of Mania. Okay, gotcha. That makes more sense.
So Roman is on as unstoppable run as it can be, and as we're saying, really cross it over to the mainstream, taking out Cena, Balor, the Fiend. The Fiend was the first person he took out in his reign, and
he beat the Fiend out of the company.
Oh boy, but I think this is a great,
and Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I think for now, this is your chance to really solidify Roman's quote unquote legendary status. Finally being the one person he can't beat at a WrestleMania. And if he could do it clean in this heel versus heel match, or
no, Brock's the face now.
So definitely good for.
He has a cowboy hat, so he's
nice Brock, nice funny Brock.
Yes,
but yet yes, it is heel versus face, but I think we want to see Roman keep going. This would be quite a letdown if he lost to Lesnar again, of all people. You need to give him all this glory out of all the people. What do you think of this big match? And if it maybe even leads to any other epic moments, like what if you have The Rock come out at the end?
I don't know if you can have
your Hollywood match.
I don't know about The Rock. I think it might be too early. It might be too early for The Rock to set up a match at Mania or even the night after.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, not even just it's too early in terms of fans caring. The fans will care instantly. But can he honestly 1000% say he knows he's free? Seriously, he's The Rock. He's super busy. I doubt he can say, "Oh yeah, I'll be free. Don't worry about it."
Exactly. Tentative days.
Right. So that's why I feel like they should get a little closer. But
fair.
I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of sucks because I don't. So if Paul Heyman, who is sided with Roman Reigns,
mm-hmm.
then beats Brock Lesnar with Roman Reigns, where does that leave Brock? And that's a weird thing to say because who cares? Essentially, he'll be.
All you
fine.
Got is Lesnar clean, and that's it.
Right. He's got gazillions in money from the WWE. He'll be okay, and I'm sure he'll come back for a Saudi show. But I just don't know where it actually leaves him in terms of
mm-hmm.
what's next. And maybe there is no next. Maybe he
retires. I mean, who else does he have to beat?
Well, that doesn't matter about who he has to beat. But you want to keep him around. He's a big match, even without a title. That's the biggest problem that WWE hasn't figured out yet. He's a big time match, even without a championship. You don't need to have the title on the line.
What if he was a Undertaker type and shows up once a year for who has the Brock Lesnar Invitational this year?
Yeah, exactly. Or like it's what Edge is kind of doing.
Yeah, right.
Just every once in a while, Edge shows up like he's going to have a match with this person for no other reason than it's Edge and it's a big match to have and somebody wants to have it. That's the entire story for the Mania match. He goes, I want a match at WrestleMania. Who wants one? And waited until someone said yes.
And now I'm bad.
Well, yeah, but he's never really bad. He's always a little bad. He's never really bad. This man had a live celebration of intimacy on television. So
probably my favorite fun fact about wrestling.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think Roman's probably going to win. I don't know why they're doing this unification thing if they're just going to split the titles again.
Literally just for the match, or a way to have Roman lose but still look strong.
Why is he going to lose?
I don't know. If someone beats him, well, I still have another title.
Another time. Okay. Yeah.
Well, like what they did with Becky time. 2 belts, who at one point she was the.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I could think, and again, I've basically, since he left AEW, I've been booking the entirety of WWE to push Cody Rhodes to the moon in my head.
Yeah.
If they bring back the old big gold belt, the WCW belt, the Dusty Rhodes belt, if you will, because I'm sure Dusty held it. Probably Dusty held it. If you have Cody come back and win that on his first night, maybe right after Mania on Raw, again, Roman wins, so he brings both titles to SmackDown and creates the WWE Universal title. They can get rid of that stupid blue belt, which is big. If they can do that, it will be worth it. If they get rid of the blue belt and they just call the regular WWE Championship the WWE Universal Championship, and it looks normal, and they have the big gold belt on Raw, I'm totally cool with that. That's perfect. The World Heavyweight Championship on Raw and the WWE Universal WWE Universal Championship on SmackDown. Get rid of the stupid blue belt. I'm locked in. Great, love that. But I mean, maybe that's possible. Maybe they bring back one of the old belts. I hope they don't make a new one.
And not the spinner belt?
Nah, spinner belt. That age.
So that is a mid 2000s type of feel.
That aged like cottage cheese.
Do.
Yeah. If Cena wins it, he could make a spinner belt. I'll give him that.
Is there a Cena appearance at all, even if he's the Doctor of Thugonomics?
No.
Or Peacemaker?
Yeah, it'll be Peacemaker.
Peacemaker with almost a superhero mixed tag.
That'd be something else.
That'd be fun. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get more depth into the unification, especially when we get closer to Mania in a couple weeks. But besides that, pretty much check marked all the things wrestling in terms of WWE. And gotta try my best to soon we could do the AEW coverage. I still need to get more.
Their big show is this weekend.
Oh, really? Well, that's
they have other big shows, but they do have a big show this weekend.
Oh, well, it's too late to do a preview.
It is. So next big show.
Exactly. So, but yeah, besides that, from War to WrestleMania to baseball, it's been quite a ride as always.
There's a lot going on in the internet.
Yes, and that who would have thought when the pandemic started, Ryan? In 2 years' time, we're going to talk about those very things.
No one. Least of all me.
Remember how Roman got his WrestleMania match? He just said to Goldberg, "I'm wrestling you for the title," before the pandemic. And look how far his character has come since then. I
saw a tweet. Samoa Joe just announced why he dropped his NXT championship because he got COVID. So he got COVID, so they stripped him of the title. And then they ended up firing him. And so someone said, let me get this straight. Samoa Joe gets COVID-19 and loses his championship. Roman Reigns gets COVID-19 and Big E loses his championship. Which is exactly what happened.
That is so, boy, when you put it that way.
Which is exactly what happened. They said, oh, no worries. Brock Lesnar could just hold that title for you. But yeah,
it really must be hard to be in that locker room sometimes when that stuff happens.
Get this straight. Roman Reigns gets sick and Big E loses his championship. What are we gonna do now? We have to take the title off of Big E.
This is gonna be a fun WrestleMania. Well, thanks again, Ryan, for the time.
We'll see
you again
anytime.
soon. And yeah, thanks for keeping on keeping on. Check him out on the TweetCap Twitter, everybody, at TweetCap.
Yep.
At TweetCap. And we'll see you soon, Ryan. Thanks again.
Thanks, Matt.
No problem. Bye.